So let's take a look next at our speaking mics. What I'm doing with the speaking mics, again, I've got my, on the console layout, I keep all my pastor and handheld mics over here on the right so I go after them. But I also have a group or a mix that they all come through so that they all get blended in that mix before they go out. In general, on these mics, EQing to make them sound natural, and different mics, you know, we have a couple different headset mics that we use, but this is something where you want to learn what that person's voice sounds like. So spend some time talking to them, listening to their voice, and get that in your head. Come up here and you want to make your EQ. You really want to compensate for what the microphone is doing and get that voice in the recording sounding as much like that person as you possibly can. And so that's kind of your goal with the EQ on that. I do compress these a little bit, so I would like to have, again, that's to kind of control if they start to really yell. You want to have a compressor sitting there to help you out. And I don't want an awful lot of compression on them, so 2 to 3 dB again when they're normally speaking, just to kind of take the edge off and smooth them out a little bit so they're not hammering at you. But with that sitting there working at 2 to 3 dBs, if they do yell or get really wound up, then you've got that there as a safety net to keep it from going too high. So I'm using like a 3 to 3.5 to 1 ratio on that. Kind of delay the attack on it, so we'll leave that initial sound come through there so you get the emphasis that they have on words, but it doesn't, that energy doesn't carry and just keep pounding at you, so you can kind of control it and hold it back. So that's how I've got that compressor set there. Now the other thing I'm doing on broadcast, and in this season where we're in an empty building down there, we'll use the crowd mics some in the, especially when the pastor is speaking, just to kind of have that room ambience and hear the people responding. Now with an empty room, that just makes it sound like an empty room and an echoey and so forth. So what I've done is actually put a touch of effect on that mix bus. So what I've done, if you go into the speaking bus over here, and I've put an insert on that bus and just put a room reverb on that bus, and it's not very much of it. I've only got about a mix balance of about 4% here now, so I just want a little bit so that it doesn't sound like that dry mic, but it's got a little bit of a sense of, okay, I'm in some kind of a room, there's some echoes, there's something else that's going on here. And that's kind of, I think, is really important when you've got this big band, this mix, and you're using effects on the vocals and everything else, and so it sounds rich and sounds like it's in a room. And then if you go to your speaking mics and they're really dry, it's like, okay, you went to a different room, different venue. It's just kind of a disconnect there. So I just put enough of that in there, and that's really easy to overdo that it really sounds echoey and so forth. And so so just a touch of that in there, and there's a lot of settings in there that you can play with a little bit in terms of reverb time. I have a fairly short reverb time. I don't have it echoing very long, so only about 0.8 of a second, so it's pretty short. And again, you can do the high frequencies and low frequencies a little bit differently depending on that voice, so you can play with some of those settings just to kind of dial that in and make it sound a little bit better. So that's all I'm doing with the speaking mics, just a little bit of effects, again, just while we're in empty rooms here. But when we go back to a live room with people in the room, probably going to ride some of that crowd mic, those crowd mics in, just to hear the people in the room. You get the sense of the room, and then you also get the added effect of the people's response if they laugh or something like that. That helps to just give that presence of what's going on in the room. So that's the speaking mics.